Hey, this is Randy Key, the musician extraordinaire. I'm Lisa Hayes, your host of Dreams for Society. Welcome back. Today is January the 6th, 2019. Happy New Year, all you beautiful dreamers out there in dreamland. We imagine, visualize, and create on this show. And so today we're going to do a little music as well. Beautiful! So, all the way from sunny California, the south of California, is Randy Keith. And I like to refer to him, as I said a minute ago, as this metaphysical musician and educator. And he does such a superb job merging his knowledge of metaphysics with sound via his musical compositions. And you heard a little snippet there at the beginning, and we'll hear some more as we go through in this interview. Randy is an artist, composer, songwriter, singer, writer, and storyteller. He has a background as a theologian, minister. I'm reading from your bio, and I'm not doing a superb job here, and illustrated a children's book titled Gorgalupa's Adventures. Did I say that right, Randy?
Yes, you did.
Gorgalupa. I love it. And also you've written a two volume book on playing the guitar. So you're an accomplished guitarist. As of late, you've been working on a book entitled Reflections of the Immortal Self, which gets into your metaphysical knowledge. And you're writing a screenplay entitled War of the Gods. And you're developing several short stories and writing musical theme scores for them. You're also presently composing songs for an album entitled Oscillating Frames of Light. And I know off camera we've talked about how music, which is also mathematical, is so enriching in terms of how it plays into this metaphysical realm. And you've been able to use the analogy of octaves, and we may go into that as a way to describe dimensions, the difference between dimensions and density. So before I go any further, Randy, please share with us a little bit about yourself, how you got to be where you are today as this metaphysical musician and educator.
Sure. It's quite a story. I'll try to condense it. I remember when I was 2 years old, when this vessel was 2 years old, I came into it and I recognized everybody that were in the house on a soul level. And I've always knew who they were. And the roles that we were playing with one another, that being mother, father, sister, brother, because they're all roles played. If we have no beginning and no end, we're not being really born, are we? So we just play these roles because this is part of the process of perpetuating creation. The idea of being a creator and that which we are creators and co-creating within this universal construct. So we play these roles and we have this sense of separation for those purposes in order to truly live out the experience the way that it should be lived out. Not necessarily here on Earth, because there's been things that got in the way quite a long time ago, and that actually comes from the second harmonic universe, which we can talk about later on if you wish. Early on within this incarnation, I was briefly exposed to music. I heard a little bit in the home. I come from a broken family. As soon as I came into this vessel, my father at the time, there was a divorce and they left. So I just seen kind of people in my family going left and right. So much for how it is here on Earth, the way it is. It's just, it is what it is. So I look to find some sense of semblance and belonging with the creative side of myself, and first going into the arts, nothing on the level of going and being schooled or anything. This is my own, initiating in the idea of dabbling into drawing, and would have got into painting, but just I didn't come from a family that had very much money, so yeah, I did with whatever I had available to me, and I listened to music more so outside of the home, at like friends' houses and that type of thing, or even in school, other than being in the house. But on one particular occasion, I remember when this was when I was six years old. I lived in Fontana, California, off Miller Street, and we had this council, and my mother, she put on some music. It was just a radio station and a classical piece. I don't have no idea what it was. It was a symphonic piece came on, and it was so moving. It just moved me to tears. It was so beautiful. I've heard other music prior to that, but always seen that other music that I heard before as being fun music, and that which I heard was real music. It was very emotional, very impactful at that time. And I remember, which was interesting, I was looking into the garage, and there was a guitar that my mother had purchased at a yard sale that she was reselling. And it turned out to be what it was. It was an old Gretsch. And at this point, if it was kept in good shape, it probably would be worth like $30,000 at this stage. But she sold it, But I was looking, I couldn't play the thing. The thing was the same size as I was. So, but I knew there was an affection towards, just music in general. Not necessarily that instrument or guitar, but just the idea of it, because of the relationship that now I was experiencing with hearing this symphonic piece. So, long story short, moving forward, jumping ahead, when I was about 12, I really loved radio theater. I thought radio theater was I thought it was best of both worlds, You're communicating story. The story is supplemented, and not more than supplemented, but you have the background of music emphasizing the drama of what is occurring within the story. It was very fascinating to me and very enjoyable. Any chance I had the opportunity to listen to radio theater, I would jump on it, So when about 1972, when I was 12 at this time, I had an abduction experience. I know I'm jumping way ahead here, but it was very interesting. I can go into it briefly if you wish.
Oh, yeah, because we're going to eventually get to how you're merging the metaphysical with the sound aspects.
It's all part of the same process, really, because nothing is isolated. It's not like, oh, it was this thing that did it. No, it was just a process. It's going just prior to going into talking about what happened during the time of the abduction.
So you were 12 years old.
It was, yeah, but I was referring to the idea of the moving towards things in an artistic way, the expression of art and that type of thing. It was a natural thing, because if we look at our, be it that we don't have any beginning or end, we've done these things before in a different level, We forgot most of it, but we still have that within us. So it's just a normal, response, so to speak. So it's not like you can develop it, but it's always presently there to begin with. So it's just part of the process of where you're going within the incarnation. That's going to be included in one way, shape, or form. So that being said, I was laying on my bed, and it was a school night. And all of a sudden I started hearing this beeping sound, right? But what's interesting about it is that I heard it within me, then all of a sudden I heard it underneath my bed. But it was like from a pinpoint. It was coming from under the ground type. That's the way to describe this, best way to describe it. And so it came up the sound came up like a funnel. Okay, it started as a pinpoint, then it moved up as a funnel, and I'm looking under the bed, I'm going, this is interesting.
Oh, you've actually put your head down and to look under the bed.
Oh yeah, I was because I heard the sound, and it sounded like Morse code, and well, at least that's what I equated with at the time. That's what I would be familiar with. So anyhow, I kind of just duck and I'm looking at it. I mean, I'm not really moved by this at all. It's just, for me, it's just inquisitive, you know. I'm just like, interesting. So I'm just, looking at, so
So
it's
you're
like,
not in fear.
no, not at
That's
all.
good.
No, 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 not at all, because there was nothing. Well, I was ever since when I was younger, my pastime dealt with going out in the field and spending time with the creatures. That was what I loved doing, So regardless if they were poisonous, it didn't move me, I'd still find a way to have some kind of communion with them. So for me, it's like it was just inquisitive, So I just look and I just like, huh. And so I just lean back on my bed again. It's like, well, that's a thing. So next thing you know, this sound gets louder and then it comes up inside me. Now this is where all of a sudden I start shifting my emotional condition, right? It's like, what's that? And I could feel it scan me. And I knew it was, looking back, well, it's technology and all these stuff I can give labels to now. But at the time, it's like, it was an interesting technology because it had a sense of being synthetic, but yet it had a sense of being organic. It's like symbiotic type of relationship to where it's from its point of origin, which I found out real quickly was right above my house. But anyhow, so I had this scanning going on, and then all of a sudden I felt it come out of my body like an entity. I felt it come out of my body. And then it went out the window. I mean, it had a specific course, and I jumped up. It's like, what's that? So I run up and I open my window. Now my windows at the time had tinfoil on them. That was kind of like the thing you did back then, just so if you had a black light or whatever you like that, you just,
Okay.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
so yeah.
That must have been because
So
you were a
anyhow,
musician.
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't start playing until much, much later in my life. But anyhow, until I was in my 20s. But
Okay.
I, I pulled the window open, and as soon as I did that, that beeping sound now became horrendously loud. I mean, it was extremely loud, but it wasn't intrusive. It wasn't harsh, and I could see it. Now I could see it. It was a pulsating grid, and which is interesting is that. As a side note, I noticed within certain films these days, when I see like a force field or shield, I go, they just didn't get that from nowhere because I seen that.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it had a very specific pattern to it, and it was pulsing. So it's electromagnetic grid is what it was. But so
Can you tell
right
us
then and there,
how wide it was?
it was electric tonal, and it had form, but the form was because it was electric tonal. You could see the pulse of the frequency.
But it did
Okay,
look like a tunnel that
it,
was,
no, it was just like a dome around the house. It was coming from the craft above it. Okay,
Oh, okay. So
so
it enveloped the house you lived in.
so that's the reason why nobody else heard any of this. Because I was looking around. That was one of the things that spooked me right then. I looked around, and because it was so intrusively loud, I go, why? I asked the question, why isn't anybody coming out of their house? And right then and there, I knew it was there for me. My mother was in the house, but I knew specifically it was there for me because she did not have the experience that I had. She recognized something and she felt something, and
Okay.
she realized, but it wasn't what was going on with me. It was totally different. So I closed the window and I said, God, I don't want to have nothing to do with this. That was the first words that came out of my mouth.
Wow.
I was like, no. So I just calmly and nonchalantly walked into my mother's bedroom, and I go, do you hear a beeping sound? you know?
Is it still beeping at this time?
Well, at this time, no,
Okay.
because I made the proclamation. I don't have anything to do with this.
Okay. And so as soon
I
as
don't,
you
I'm not.
said that, it
I'm
quit?
not. I'm not agreeing. I'm not agreeing to this.
Okay.
Um, although, there's always been subject change in one's mind, but there wasn't a whole lot of that going on. But what did happen to me, I'll just kind of jump ahead. What did happen to me is I ended up passing out.
Okay, so let's make sure we understand the chronological
Yeah.
events here. So, what I'm hearing you say is you were lying on your bed, you
hmm
heard this pin sound, ping, 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 underneath your bed.
Well, it's like it was like Morse code sound, but
Okay,
it was coming from a distance, and the distance based on my perception was that from under the house.
from under the
Initially,
house.
that's not where it was coming. It came from. It was actually here, present here. And then all of a sudden, it switched and it went beneath. It started from beneath and then came
Okay,
back up like
okay,
that, and within a funnel.
you're
It's
right.
yeah.
And then
So
when so you leaned over your bed and looked under the bed just to see if it was coming from anything. There was nothing visible, and that's when you you laid back down on your bed, and it started to come in within you, and you
yeah,
felt
it came
like
up
it
with
was
itself.
scanning your body
Oh yeah, it's exactly what it did because I could feel it go through my body.
up and down and up and down,
Oh
up
yeah,
and down several
absolutely. Yeah,
times.
yeah, and yeah. Well, it did. Well, let me see how long it's out. Let's see if I can go relive the moment for a second. It was about a second and a half or 2 seconds at the most. But
Okay,
when that's happening, it's a long time
right. And I
because
like to
it's
get
not
the specifics
it's
on these
time.
encounters. Mhm. For
Yeah,
people.
time is suspended.
Right. So 1 or 2 seconds of a scan up and down your body, and
Then it came out of me.
it was louder at this point when it was inside your body. Did you see any?
Well,
Okay.
it didn't. It didn't. There wasn't a sound while it was in the body.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
Now, so when it was in the
While I
body,
was in
you
the body,
just
was there
felt
was no
it.
sound.
You just felt it when it was in the body.
Yeah, I felt I not only yeah yeah it was like an entity.
Okay.
That's what it felt like.
But did it
But it
feel
was
like a
synthetic.
grid,
It felt
like
like
did it feel like a flat grid going up and down, or was it an entire being
uh
kind of?
no, it was what it was doing because at the time I didn't know really what was happening, but now I go back and relive it,
Uh-huh.
and I know exactly what it was doing. It was scanning for one memory. Of course, they already had access to that, but it was checking my system. That is my energetic system,
Hmm.
which people call chakras because that's what they are. Chakras have been messed with on this planet. For all those that need to know that they have been, but they're like a planet vortex, excuse me. It's required to regulate energy,
Hmm.
to keep it in balance. So they were checking that out. They were seeing what was going on with that because it had to do with past life and trauma that you go through. And there's a long list of things that we're looking for that I could describe, but we won't go into that. But so they just scanned that, seen what was there, and then it felt like an entity, like an AI entity type of thing. It went out, and I could not see it, but physically,
Hmm.
because now it was in me, I knew it. If you knew,
Yeah.
I knew it. I understood, and so I followed it. When it came out of me, it went right out the window,
Okay.
and it was that type of thing. So when that happened, which was interesting, I don't know why it went out the window, but it did. Either way, that's when I got up and investigated it.
The
You
same
know,
window that you opened, and then you looked out and saw the craft above you, but maybe you didn't see a
well,
craft, you just saw the grid.
I didn't see the craft above me,
Okay.
but I knew it was there. Like I said, I go back and relive these
Okay.
things, and then I am able to see these things, from a different perspective according to soul,
Okay.
because everything's recorded,
So
and so you're able to do that.
the light grid you saw, what color was it?
It wasn't a light grid. It was
Oh,
electrotonal grid, which is
okay.
a frequency grid, which is it can now electrotonal can have light, such as you ever heard the blue flame when you're talking about the Earth or talking about planets. That's a morphogenic field.
Mhm.
This didn't have that. It was synthetic because it was being projected from the craft. But
Okay.
it's the same technology that's used throughout the universe, though.
So you never
or
saw a
system, if you
light. You never saw any light or
no,
anything visual.
there was no, there was, I seen it. Like I said, it had shape and form. Uh, I don't want to get this stuck in any listener's mind, but
Right.
I'm going to use this analogy. And if anybody has seen Predator and the cloaking device, you could see it. It has an outline, form to it.
Okay.
That's what it was like that, but not like that.
Okay.
Okay. In other words, you could see the pulse, you could see the grid, you can see the geometry.
Okay.
It's so it's electrotonal. You know,
Okay. So if
um,
anything, it had kind of a grayish pulsating light or something that distinguished it from the dark sky.
um, well, it was really up and close. I mean,
Okay.
like I said, it just surrounded the house.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
it was probably, I would say, 8 feet away from me when
Great.
I
I mean,
opened the
it's
window.
awesome. That's an awesome experience. And when you opened to the
Yeah.
window, that was when you started to say, "Hey, wait a minute, I don't really like this invasive."
Well, I was curious. I was curious,
Okay.
be it that it was so loud
Hmm.
that nobody was investigating this. You would think
Right.
people would be coming out of their house, and I'm looking and I'm going, there's nobody. And then all of a sudden, because I got was now I reflect back and I know reason why I asked certain questions because I ask questions not here, but I ask questions here.
Hmm.
I've always done that.
Hmm.
And when I did that, because I was scanned, there was a quick connection already made,
Okay.
and I realized it was here for me and on what level, I have no idea. That's what I didn't like. I don't like being kept in the dark.
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
if you're going to show up, invite yourself. Here's the other thing now. If you're going to show up, make yourself known according to invitation if you have one.
Mhm.
If you don't have an invitation, make one. If you don't want to make one, don't show up. That's basically my premise has been for the longest time regarding anything, because that's just a matter of showing, that's a simple show of respect. So if I had a long history with these beings, regardless, you just don't show up unless you make yourself known in the right way. And here's the thing, this wasn't what I consider to be one of those experiences. This was an intrusive experience.
Okay.
That's the reason why I use the word abduction,
Okay.
because contacting and abduction is two different things. So I had an abduction, and I was from that time period on. I was blocked. I like it unto if you have. Well, it's not so much your memories erased. Your memory you've gone on to under this intense state of hypnosis where you don't look at it. It's sort of like having a room in your house and no longer going in there because you don't think it exists. That's how it is. And this wiped out a huge amount of library for me being access for a long, long time. It wasn't until when I was first bedridden at 33 when this stuff all started coming back.
Interesting. That's a long span.
Yeah, so
21-year span.
prior to that, I had was influenced by Christianity and became part of that, and I had a very significant transformative experience. Wasn't really big. I always wanted to fit in. Now, most people do, especially when you have a broken home. But based on head knowledge, I wasn't really all that moved by things. So, but to have the experience in the way that I had it, especially, is the reason why I was in Christianity. No other reason. End
Mm.
of story. No other reason. And
Mm.
but at any rate, so when I went through that, by the way,
Let's back up just a second
many
because
many lifetimes. Well, yeah, and what I was gonna. That's the reason why I brought that up, because it connects to me starting to do what I did with music.
right, but I wanted to finish for the viewers. You went into your mom's bedroom, and at this point, after you told the craft, "I don't want any more of this," or whatever it was, you quit hearing the clicks or the sound, or you didn't feel anything, and then you
Well,
walked to your mom's
soon as
bedroom?
soon as soon as I closed the window, which was
Okay,
very interesting,
okay.
because closing the window shut down the dB. In other words, the decibel level. At least that's what I was experiencing. Like I said, it was very, very loud. It's really hard to describe how loud it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, I
but
found
it
it
wasn't.
interesting that it was really loud when you opened it up too.
Yeah, and then when I closed it, it kind of just. But I didn't really pay much mind to that. My concern at the time was that I really didn't want to be involved with this.
Okay. So you
It,
knew enough
it to me,
about
it
abductions then?
no, I didn't know anything about anything concerning that.
Okay.
I mean, we go back to 1972,
Right.
so not a whole lot of people talking about any of that back then. Probably the only thing that was ever mentioned was Betty and Barney Hill, which was like, woo, 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 hardly
Right.
anybody touched any of that
Right.
stuff, because especially at one point within the United States, a lot of this stuff quickly got brushed under the rug and poo-pooed on.
Yeah.
And, manipulation within the media to make people out to be kooks and stuff like that. So there wasn't a whole lot of information. It was there, but it wasn't mainstream, not like it is today, not even close. So last thing I was concerned about was anything like that. I was thinking about going to school next day. It's like what I was going to have for lunch.
But your mom felt something, but she didn't experience the same thing.
Oh yeah, because she has a long history with as far as Christianity for her, and she had her own particular experiences and some frightening experiences. Quite. I mean, there's a lot of metaphysical a lot of paranormal, I guess, is the term that people use these days. It's not what we used to call back then. That would occur in the home, and I have loads of that stuff. But
Hmm.
she was she. That's the reason why she really delved into the Bible and her idea of understanding of what God is and according to the text and all that other stuff. So she was reading it at the time, and her experience was she says, I feel love, which made me understand certain things later on. And I go, okay, I'm going to put this as a footnote because this is important. People should know this. Be it that we're in a construct of frequency, vibration, energy, those things can be reproduced. I have a light right there. It's not the sun, but it is a light.
Hmm.
It can be reproduced. Love, that emotion, can be reproduced.
Hmm.
All this stuff can be reproduced, and it could be, and you can just bathe in it and think it's all great and fine and dandy. The difference between knowing what that is and who you are is like this. When you know who you really are and the love that you are, you always match it up to that, whether or not it connects. And that's where if people don't know and they're giving themselves away, they're never going to know that. They'll never be able to discern the difference between themselves and that. And that's been the situation here on Earth. So being discerning is something that is very important to me over the years, extremely important to know who is who. And the thing of it is that if one understands certain principles and laws within this universe, if they're asked, they have to tell you.
Hmm.
They can't hide nothing from you.
So your
You know. So
discernment was that that was an abduction and you told them to leave, and they did.
I don't know. I don't. No, they didn't.
They
They
didn't?
didn't.
Okay.
They took me. They took me.
Okay.
And they wiped they like I don't like using the memory wipe, but they put me under hypnosis to forget the things that I experienced. It wasn't until 1993 when I was completely bedridden at
Right.
this point. I'm jumping way
At
ahead.
the age of 33.
Yes.
Okay.
And that this stuff started coming back,
Okay.
and so I was kind of rebooted, and
Hmm.
it was extremely traumatizing to relive the things I relived. It was very cataclysmic, very cosmological, cataclysmic. I was reliving some of the things that took place in this universe, this local area, actually blowing up planets and stuff like that.
Which local area?
Well, the asteroid belt. I experienced all that, and
so the rebooting
I almost died several times while I was bedridden because of that.
Wow.
I was reliving this stuff, and I would wake up, and I got down to, I was bedridden. I got down to 153 pounds. I'm 6'3". That's Auschwitz. I seen myself in a full-length mirror, and it was like, if I could cry, I would, but if I cried, I would suffocate. I couldn't express emotion after a point in time because physically the body wasn't able to handle it. So I almost, a couple of times, I was taken to the hospital once, and it was like 5 minutes away.
Wow. Do you feel like you went through some near-death experiences during this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I was in and out type of thing. But what's interesting is that I was always conscious. I was always conscious of what was going on. And for the longest time, I realized that I wasn't the body, that I was in. And one of the key things is that when I came into this vessel when it was 2 years old, that stuff was removed from me to look at that. It didn't come back until I was, in bedridden.
Okay, so let me back up just a second, just to
But
clarify
that was
this.
a key factor in regards to knowing the difference between who I was and who I wasn't. And I wasn't the body.
Right. Okay, so to clarify for the viewers, I want to go into a little bit too this walk-in phenomena that people experience, and how you knew you walked in at the age of 2. If you can elaborate on that. But just to recap here, you walked in to your current body at the age of 2, and you weren't able to recapture anything that happened to you prior to the age of 2 in previous lives and simultaneous lives, whatever, until you were 33 bedridden. Then all that came back to you, especially all the devastating and challenging circumstances around the asteroid belt here in this area of the universe. And
right.
So now at the age of 33, a lot of your memory is coming back, which also brought back the understanding of this age of 12 experience that you now call an abduction. So before we get into more about the abduction, if you have any memories restored from that, do you have anything more to talk about regarding to explain to the viewers how you know that you walked in at the age of 2, and what was the vehicle? What was the vehicle like before you were 2?
Well, I have no recollection because the radial body and the memory in relationship to the Earth and what took place in the second harmonic universe, which is the result of what we have in this first harmonic universe. The memory has been messed with, so that's the reason why it's difficult to access. You can access it through it, but you can't access it directly through the Earth. It's complicated. So I didn't remember anything.
Okay.
But I understood things once I was here. That was the difference. Okay. And so when I came into the body, it was basically simply just light. And I knew everything around me. I knew who everything was. All of a sudden start feeling the body, and I felt this intense rage in the body because of the trauma that it suffered, all these different things in relation. But immediately I just knew who all the souls were, and it's like, here we are again.
So when you were 2,
it was one of those things.
When you were 2 and this happened, you remember this happening when you were 2.
It's the clearest memory within this incarnation.
So
what makes it interesting that it disappeared, and I didn't look at it for years and years. That was taken away from me to look at that.
So. Okay, so at the age of 33, you remember how you felt when your body came into this vehicle at the age of 2.
Oh, everything came back.
Right. Okay.
And not only that, but a lot of other things I'd rather not seen and dealt with, especially at the time where I was. Usually that's how it happens. I'll put it this way.
Yeah.
To be reawoken, there's a lot of different ways for that to happen. Mine was so happen unto death.
Right.
So, and the long time trauma and torment, actually living in the body sick like that was very tormenting.
Mm.
Literally, there's no other way to express it. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Yeah.
But that went on sitting at the edge of the bed, gasping for breath, and that type of thing. Remind me of the next door neighbor animal that they had, which it was flopping and turning back and forth because it was dying. I went through that for months.
Months?
Yes,
Wow.
actually a lot longer than that, but yeah,
Mm.
it took about 8 years for me to get back functioning again.
Oh
I
my.
lost, I had my career and everything in front of me, which goes back to the music thing. I had television time and all this stuff in front of me,
Mm.
and I worked up to the point to where I couldn't walk anymore, and that was it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So you're, in essence, 8 years, you're 41 now, where you completely feel back to normal?
No, never,
No?
never really got normal.
Okay.
The body never really got normal. It got better in functioning and all that stuff.
Okay.
I'm probably a bit better now than I ever been,
Okay.
and that's because a lot of things changed within me,
Wow.
and a lot of things I've cleared out, and a lot of attachments and stuff that's been removed. And so, I mean, I was carrying a lot of stuff from lifetime to lifetime with me.
Wow.
It's
So
this
at
is a
30, at 33, that's the same year that, the resurrection of Jesus. I find that interesting. Have you thought about that?
I don't associate anything
Okay.
with somebody else outside of myself. I
Good for
I
you.
learn I learn not to connect with any other idea of master or anything. I am a master. So, we all are equal or we're not. And
Yeah.
so it's I've been underneath the hierarchy for many lifetimes. So I respect any being, not any less than any other being. So I don't put anything on a pedestal. I don't do that. I don't subscribe or recommend it for anybody else.
I love that. So one of the takeaways from your awakening and in this experience at 33 is that hierarchy is not the way to go. Everyone's equal in terms of their mastery, is what I'm hearing you say. Are there any other takeaways, that words of wisdom, knowledge that you can impart upon us from your experience in the awakening process from 33 and onward?
Yeah, that's a funny thing about experience, huh? You can't really communicate it very well.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I don't really mention too much about it, is because it really doesn't serve very much purpose other than what you've went through. But if I could say anything to anybody, I would say go within and seriously seek yourself out. There's a lot of techniques that you can use to do that. Don't externalize in order to try to validate oneself, because you're going to constantly be chasing something that doesn't exist.
Mm.
And but along those lines, when an individual does that, and that's been the plight of this planet, is that there's plenty of beings that will step up and will take advantage of that. So when you go outside of yourself for validation, you're going to get exactly what you're looking for and then some. You're going to always have some, as long as there's tyrannical beings, as long as there's beings that are self-serving and are cut off from their origin, which is the source of who they are, and they look up to make up for it by drawing energy from other beings. When you externalize and go outside of yourself for validation or security, those beings will show up. My recommendation is go within, because all you need to know is within you. You just got to spend the time and discipline in order to be able to hear yourself. It's not that we don't hear ourselves, we usually just ignore it because we're conditioned to go outside of ourselves. So going
Mm.
within is a simple phrase that's used over and over again, but it's not so simple.
That's great, great advice and great wisdom. And coupled with the going within is a trust within ourselves that we are the ones we're waiting for, and
Yeah.
that we have all the knowledge we need within us. And the fear of going outside is going to put us in a lower frequency. If we're trying to attach ourselves to someone that we think is better than us, that's going to give us the answers that is going to save us, going into some kind of codependency role, then that just lowers our frequency. And I agree, it can put us in a different whole movie. And what I would say to the viewers too about abductions versus non-abductions, I've had several experiences. I've been on 2 spaceships. I've had several out-of-body experiences. All mine have been great. There's only one that I didn't like, and I was feeling like I was being pulled out of my body. And I immediately went within and asked for help from Archangel Michael and did some other things that I was just innately knew to do. And I went back in my body, and that experience ended without anything negatively happening. So, in addition to going within, knowing that we're the ones we're waiting for, I feel it's very important to let the viewers know there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be in fear of. And if we turn into fear within us, if we feel fearful, as I was starting to feel when I was being pulled out of my body this one time, I immediately knew I had to change it to peace within. And that's when everything subsided, and I had this beautiful, bright, yellow, golden light in my head. And I knew I was fine then. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's nothing to be afraid of, because we're the ones we're waiting for. No evil will become us, inside or out, as long as we're in a high frequency. There is no need to defend ourselves. The only thing we need to do is be in a state of, for lack of a better, unconditional love. Do you have anything to add to that or detract from it?
Yeah. I think what you're saying is correct, and I think the simplicity of being in this universal construct is to understand the template of its design. If you understand the template of its design, you're not going to get confused. The language of the universe is frequency.
Mm.
If you're able to, it was mentioned before, the idea of technology. Look at this light, right? And that light, the sun is a light. That's a light, but that's not the sun. You see what I'm saying? It's a duplication. It is honed through technology, reproducing the frequency to give me this light. It's artificial, but it's light. Discernment is knowing the difference. So within this construct of frequency, when we're able to identify what is synthetic and what is not, then we have mastery over it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's kind of like the biggest thing, because I find a lot of people within this world, regardless of how much information is provided for them, there's a tendency to react and kind of go woo-woo. Especially in the new age, so-called quote unquote movement. There's a whole lot of woo-woo with that, and I never, like I said, I've been part of, so-called, or not even really, can't even say that I was part of organized religion, because I was always a rebel. I was always doing things outside, but I was part of the stuff. I had boots on the ground, so to speak. I was doing the stuff that people were talking about doing. I was involved with, exorcisms and things like that, which can be which we're talking about the idea of having no fear. But when you go into the battlefield with that stuff and you go face to face with these beings, in other words, if you go into their territory in order to bring light, see, I was trained to basically behave like a warrior. Mm. And take dominion over that situation. And I realized that really didn't work very well. Usually, excuse my language, but you usually got your ass handed to you. And so there's a different way to go about doing that. And the way that you go about doing the way I come to realize, because later on in my life, I had other experiences where I had entities come up and scream in my face and everything. And I wasn't moved a fraction iota, is because I didn't care. I gave no emotion towards it. I gave nothing towards it. I just seen it. It's sort of like this, seeing it for what it is everything that you see. If there's really no duality if you see things for what they are, if that makes any
No,
sense.
I agree.
It's not bringing judgment to the table, it's just observing. So it's
Yeah.
a neutral, more or less, position to take. And the only thing that you're responding to is your own actions, what you do. So if you reflect and you give the true essence of who you are as a love being, the love that you've always been, that's shining through you. I mean, when you have the intention, because the intention's everything. If you put forth that intention honestly and genuinely, then it can do one or two things. You can either transmute the situation or it could alleviate the situation altogether.
Mm.
Because only thing that can hold that space, I call it the trump card. It's the only, well, not, Donald Trump, but, the trump card is playing, you know
I
what I mean.
know there's no coincidence on any of this,
But
but
it's
Trump is trumping it all.
the,
Anyway.
the expression of that genuine sense of who you are as a love being, which is not really to be equated with the idea of earthly love, because there's not the emotion that's attached to it. It's something completely different. And I think you know what I'm referring to when I'm saying. So when you genuinely express that makes all the difference in the world. So you can walk into a situation and you could be surrounded by all this adversity,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you're walking in a bubble.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I love it. That's beautiful. That's
I've experienced that. In fact, I experienced that exact,
yeah.
and I didn't know what it was until later on. Then I realized what it was that actually was encapsulating. It was like a bubble, and I realized it was me.
Yep.
I did study on it. I realized, wait a second. I actually, I hate to use the word stumble upon, because you don't really stumble upon anything.
Yeah.
It was brought to my attention what that was. It was a very transcending experience. It had to do with healing somebody of cancer and all that.
Yeah.
It was
I know
amazing.
what you mean. So it's almost as if you're observing this dualistic world without playing in the dualistic world. You're rising above what we think of as love and joy and all of that, and you're in some space of frequency, which I've been in too, just a little bit here and there. It's hard to explain it.
It's transcendent.
Yeah.
And it's like moving in with a fishbowl.
Yeah.
You're moving into the world within your own world.
Right.
That's within it, and observing have contact with, but
Yeah.
nothing can enter your space unless it's invited into your space.
Right.
Which is very liberating, to be in that state and realize that that's kind of normal.
Yeah. Hopefully
Not kind of,
it will
it
be
actually is
always
normal.
normal in the future.
But,
And then eventually the dualistic world will fall away because it's no longer serving us at all. Because why would we want to even observe it if we're not playing in it anymore? This is kind of my thought. But I wanted to go back to something. We've got a few more minutes, couple more minutes here. You were talking about discernment and discerning whether something's synthetic or not synthetic. And I just wanted to say that not being synthetic really resonates with me, because that one out-of-body experience, I had this very intense, beautiful out-of-body experience, and I saw all the steps, and it felt very natural. And I actually went through some vortexes, and I won't go into all those details, and went on a spaceship. And then after that, a month or so, or I have to go back to my timetable, I had another out-of-body experience that I was just talking about, and it didn't feel right. It felt synthetic. It was like, trying to ride a bike with the chain kind of coming off. And that's when I started getting into fear, because I'm like, something's off. And I like how you said it's synthetic, it's artificial. Like we have sunlight, but we can create artificial light. And can you expand a little bit? Because I agree with you, the discernment there is very crucial.
It's again, I think what's important to take away from this, at least from my perspective, is that anything that is a frequency,
right,
can be reproduced.
Okay.
It can be recreated. And I've seen evidence of that within certain abduction cases where people get caught up in this surreal experience,
Okay.
and they think they're having this experience genuinely. And what they're doing is they're living within a holographic experience that has been orchestrated specifically for them in order to basically fool them.
Mm-hmm.
And with that comes all these different aspects of emotion. The expression of the emotional aspect of love, that's a frequency. Everything that we express on an emotional level, you can bottle it, if you will, as a frequency, and you can reproduce it.
Mm.
And that's what's going on with a lot of these scenarios in regards to these abduction cases. I look at it and I go, this is what's happening here.
Mm.
And so, in other words, for us individually, in order to know the difference between that and the truth is to know who you are.
Mm.
And that takes some doing. You have to spend time knowing self and not reacting according to your circumstances and what's going on in the mind.
Mm.
You need to get down into the heart and get into the heart consciousness of being, which takes you back throughout the annals of time pre-existing to know who you are. And when you know, when you embrace that, when you realize that, which goes beyond words to explain, that's when you start separating yourself from the hologram.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by, because this is all a hologram, the experience with the body, the avatar, the whole thing, right? When you go back to the source of who you are and recognize the difference between the two, getting above the trees, so to speak, to be able to see clearly. That way you're able to discern and know the difference between that which is synthetic and that which is real.
Mm. Do you feel that music is helping us do that? Helping you do that?
It has for me. It's a platform for meditation for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, I'll go back a little bit in regards to the reason why I started expressing myself in there outside of the just from an artistic level early on. But when I was involved with Christianity, that's one of the things what I used to do, which was called, it was put in the context or put in the category of prophetic ministry. And what prophetic ministry meant at the time, in this respect, when you're playing music, sitting down at the piano, is that it was all improvised. In other words, whatever came out of your spirit is what you played and you sung about. And usually my situation was, for me, what I was concerned about or what I had interest in was being able to find and feel within the group, usually a small group, because that's why I enjoyed small groups of people. I would feel into what's there. And then I would start playing something. I'd just play one chord and I'd just get a pulse. And then I would just start feeling into the room. And then I would find out within me. And next thing you know, I'm saying things that's coming out of me to be of service, because that's the word ministry. That's what it is, to be of service to those individuals on a heart level. And that was what was interesting and important for me and from that, it's basically where I started flowing in other areas, and then I tried to hone it more and make it more arranged and that type of thing as far as with music. But later on down the road, I started, I'm going to jump way ahead, okay, because it's important that I do that. But that's where I kind of really started doing as far as seeing the significance of the relationship, okay, with it. Not pretentiously, but genuinely within the moment, And it's not necessarily easy to do. You have to prepare yourself to do those things. You have to do your work within you, right, to be able to do that. Keep your heart open and so on and so forth. But it was when I moved in here. I've been here for about five and a half years now, this particular domicile. And if I can, bring this out. I got this instrument right here. Back in 2002. And this is called a war guitar because it was made by Mark Warr, his last name, W-A-R-R. I don't think he's in business anymore, but anyhow, I
So
love
cool.
piano, but um, piano was kind of hard to move around, that type of thing. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time with piano. I usually used it for composing. It's been only lately that I've been writing and actually playing and looking to sing and do that stuff here lately with it, which is I'm very grateful to do that. But I picked this up because I was more of a hands-on strings guy. And I wanted something that was similar to the harmonic capability that the piano has. You can't be as articulate on this as you can on the piano, but harmonically, I liked what it had to offer. It made more sense to me than guitar did because this is really not a guitar. It's what I call a string and bass, a melody and bass string instrument. And the people go, well, it looks like a bass, and I go, well, I said, if you put frets on a violin, does it make it a guitar? Because this is a completely different discipline of playing, and so is that would But anyhow, so I
Can you
got
play for
this.
us? Wait a minute. You can't pick it up
Well,
without playing.
I just want to kind of give you a little bit of background, the reason why I actually got this. And then I'll show you the one that I had designed for me.
Okay.
And anyhow, so I couldn't play it for a long time. I started playing it for like a couple of years, trying to get acclimated to it because I almost gave up on it because it was really just too much. I mean, you have to rethink everything. And early on in your life, that's not so bad. But when you get older in your life and have to relearn something, say, wait a second, I already know how to do other stuff. Why am I doing this to myself type of thing. So anyhow, I was married at the time, got a divorce. It wasn't meant to be. It was this long story with that. So I found myself in an apartment. I couldn't really play these instruments or piano even with an apartment. So I put stuff in the closet. Okay. When I got here, and this is the reason why I mentioned this, is that prior to that, I started my YouTube channel and I started communicating the things that I understood based on my understanding in order to try to help people in their process. Right. So I finally brought the instrument back out, and it was really interesting about it is that I hadn't played it for a long, long, long time, especially string instruments. They're very fallible, But I immediately started writing songs on this, and the songs that I was writing were the stuff that I was teaching about on my channel. It was just coming out of me, and every time I picked up the instrument, I had to stop myself because something always new would come out. So I spent time accumulating, and that's the reason why I mentioned you in the bio. You mentioned the idea of the album "Oscillating Frames of Light." Scott Limerill, a good friend of mine, he says you should say sound, light and sound. I go, well, it's kind of like all the same thing. But anyhow, I go with what I know, and it's I don't second guess it. So, at any rate, I started writing, like I said, with that, and now I don't hardly even touch the guitar anymore because it doesn't really fit with what it does. This makes more sense to me, because it allows for accompaniment. And there's a separation of the lower register and the higher register. You can do that with guitar if you have extended strings on it. If you like an 8-string or whatever, and you tune it differently. I love guitar, but for me, this is my instrument. So I don't really touch that other one anymore as much. It's like it was like the band thing is what I did with the guitar, which I don't do anymore. So it's like doesn't call for it. But this is what I designed.
Oh,
This is really what I wanted to begin with, and I actually inquired with a luthier that I found, and he came over when I was living in San Bernardino on 25th Street, and so we talked. And my idea was to actually bring this stuff into the marketplace because these instruments have been made for a long time, but they're made to order by everybody that builds them. They're always made to order. There is no mainstream this stuff nowhere. There is no. In other words, I wanted to be able to get it where it's set on the shelf in between a Les Paul and a P bass, or something like that. I wanted to get it out in mainstream. I wanted it to create an introductory model and that type of thing so it could be affordable and and so on and so forth. And I was very, very much interested in the youth and get new instruments in the hands of the youth. Was going to create new music for tomorrow. It's that type of thing. So I'm very inspired to wanting to do that. Excuse me. So I wanted to create a company in order to have these things built. And so I had sketched out some things, and I was communicating with Luther, and he was more interested in making something that looked real flashy and different. He was being artsy-fartsy with me. And he came from a long family of Luthers. He actually was fourth generation. So I completely respected the guy as far as his knowledge and ability and everything, just based on his resume. But it wasn't along the lines with what I had in mind. I was trying to be practical, It just didn't have money to throw to the wind. So this was one of the initial designs that I had in mind, was this, because when I looked into it and I inquired in this, I went to Stick Enterprises, which is an instrument was developed by Emmett Chapman called the Chapman Stick. I initially went there first, and it didn't really work out for me with that. So I found myself going over to the war guitar, as I mentioned over here. And but once I got it, it was a bit of a struggle to try to set it up, because I had to set it up, and I know I'm getting lengthy here, but there was a long process. What I initially wanted was something that I would be familiar with, and if I was going to market this stuff, it needed to be familiar to other people that have been playing for a while, such as bass players and guitar players. They want something that they would be able to put on their person instead of putting it on and strapping it on like they were strapping on a three-headed serpent. They would strap on this and they would go. But anyhow, so the way it fits on me like a guitar or bass.
Yeah.
Now, these instruments here are not designed to do that. They're meant to play vertically.
Yeah.
Not horizontally. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to shorten the scale of it. I wanted to bring it to where I looked down, because the whole idea behind it, I think of it as an accompaniment instrument to sing, that type of thing. You can use it as an instrumental instrument, that's fine. But for all practicality, you have to navigate.
Yeah.
And this is it's a monstrosity. So in order to navigate properly, I have to be able to glance down and know where I'm going.
Okay.
I have the color of this board, the frets, the way it's shaped, everything is there's a system to it.
Yeah.
So this is what I had in mind to begin with, but nobody was building it. So if anybody's out there,
yeah,
that's
Randy's,
a luthier.
Have you patented it yet?
No, but I mean, no.
But if someone's interested, you'll do it.
Initially, I had a friend of mine. We were beginning to work together. We spent a year developing this prototype, and this is still a prototype.
Nice.
And he, for whatever reasons, decided to back out from the business just as it was starting to really take off. I mean, we're finished now. We can start doing the work, and the other part of it. And he just decided not to, which for particular reasons I won't mention. But at any rate, yeah. So, see if I can.
Yeah, let's hear some.
I don't know if you can hear it or not.
Yes.
Okay, so this is going to be kind of hard for me to do because my head's being pulled back and I can't really see what I'm doing. So we'll just fake this. Excuse me.
Beautiful, beautiful, Randy.
I'm having a hard time with this thing.
That was beautiful. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some of your music below this video so people can.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and also I'll put your link to your YouTube channel so people that can hear more from you in your videos that you've already done and will be doing in the future. But yeah, it's so nice, so beautiful. Oh my, that needs to be marketed.
So anyhow, yeah. Let me put this back down. I have to really stand up and, it's funny. Well, I got
Headpiece.
this headset,
Mhm.
and when I got it, it has this like really small cord, and I go, what am I supposed to do with that? In order to attach it to anything, you have to have like an extension for it. So I don't.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. As much as this thing cost, you would think that wouldn't be an issue, but
I wanted to mention, again, in addition to having all of your links below this video so you can get a hold of you, you are also performing, and you alluded to this a few minutes ago, house calls. When you get in front of a small group of people, you're going to their homes and playing in
yeah,
person.
right. It's an in-house concert. Excuse me,
Mm.
this thing's breaking up. Yeah, it's known as in-house concerts. They've been. This is something that a lot of actually mainstream artists have been doing for quite a while too, because it's been really successful in that regard. It's more of an intimate environment, and if for far as with what I have in mind, as far as what I'm looking to communicate and share and remind people of, so to speak, it's a perfect environment to do that in. You know, because as when I mentioned I made a little advert with that little video advert, and my my interest was playing within a small groups of people because it was more intimate. And if I could, like, right now, I could stop playing and talk to you. You where else can you do that?
Right.
You can't do that online where unless you're conversing with somebody else. But when you're doing it by yourself and just making videos, and I stopped doing that. I started to do that for a little while, to where I would have one particular video that I did called uh, "The Land of Shrot," a Nelly's theme,
Hmm.
which I now subsequently changed the title of it. I call it now "Nate of the Willow, the Sort of Raha Kaz."
Mm.
And yeah, so anyhow, so I did that. Was one of the last things I think I did. I have a lot of videos actually out there and that I've done, but is because it's just another thing that gets lost on the internet. As far as I'm concerned, it's never really been an interest of mine personally, to be in cyber world.
Right.
I mean, there's a benefit to it, and it has its place, but it's not a substitution for the real thing of being in person with anybody, or being able to communicate directly in front of somebody, or being in their home, or
Hmm.
being in the same space.
That vibration from the music does something to our chakras that we get in person rather than a recording.
Right.
I love that. And at the very end of this video, be sure to, listeners, spend a 10 seconds to listen to. Randy gifted me with his creation called We Can Imagine. And he puts in there, he sings, imagine, visualize, and create our dreams. So that was so amazing. And you do it on the piano with your voice. And I'm going to be sure to add that at the end here before the video ends. Is there anything else that you would like to tell the viewers before we sign off?
Finding yourself in the moment,
Mm.
I think, clarifies a lot of things for ourselves. It's when we're too much in the future or too much in the past, we never can find out where we're at, and the present is always. Say, what time is it? It's always now. So it's, as an example, in regard to that, which is your tag that you have for your channel, and what on your website is that we can imagine, visualize, and create our dreams. And I was watching a video of yours, and you did that at the end, and just before you did, you're closing out, and you got a symbol, and you hit the symbol, and the symbol was in B flat, and so I
Oh,
wrote that in B flat
oh my
for that reason,
gosh.
actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
So
so
yeah.
cool. I'm glad to know that. Thank
So
you.
yeah, and my point is that being in the moment allows you to be in the moment
Yeah.
and to really embrace what's going on then and there.
Hmm.
and feel and experience it for what it is as much as you can, you know. So that way
Right.
you always take that with you. So whenever you're in the moment, you're always taking the genuine sense of self with you, and being
Mhm.
able to express that within the context of life and with among others, you know.
And that
It, it's it's it's
ties really well
it's like
into,
contagious, you know.
yeah, it's contagious and ties really well into your wisdom earlier about there being no beginning or end. When we're in the
Right.
moment, that falls away, beginnings and endings. I love that.
Yes.
Well, beautiful. Again,
Thank you, Lisa.
Randy Keith,
Thank you so much
he's
for
a
having me.
metaphysical musician and educator. And it's been so delightful to have you with us and to give us a snippet of your beautiful music. If the viewers out there in Dreamland want a snippet of his music in your home and you live in Southern California near Los Angeles or around the San Bernardino area, did I say that right? San
Yes,
Bernardino?
I'm San Bernardino County, so
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, great. If you're near that and you want a house call, you know who to go to, and to be one of the few people to be able to hear this beautiful piece, this beautiful musical instrument that you created, that I hope that you can market going forward. That's amazing.
Yeah, if at the least, this is something that really, I'm starting to really focus on what I'm doing with this. So one of the things I'm going to do as a precursor, I feel that I should do that, and as I'm talking, is to go ahead and perhaps even do some live streaming concert and just do a few songs or
Mm,
whatever and see who I can bring in it. And the more people that show up, the longer that I'll hang out, and we
yeah.
can have some fun. We can have some fun with that, and so I think that would be fitting. So
Oh, it would be. I would love to hear more of that. And even though it's through this recording and over the internet, I still feel the resonance of it. So people would be well served with more of your music, Randy. So I encourage you to keep on trucking with that. And with that, dear dreamers out there, we so enjoyed spending time with you. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them at the end of this video, below this video, and we'll reach out to you. And until next time, imagine, visualize, and create.